Hey everyone, and welcome. We all know that feeling, right? When the city pavement is just radiating heat. For decades, it seemed like we had the answer. Plant more trees, paint roofs white. But what if we've been missing a massive piece of the puzzle? Today, we're diving into a source that suggests the real key isn't just about blocking the sun, but about making our buildings, well, making them breathe. And this is the question that gets right to the heart of it. We've been doing all this stuff, painting roofs, planting trees, and yeah, it helps for sure, but our cities just keep getting hotter. This question really forces us to step back and ask, what if our best efforts are based on a picture that's, well, missing something crucial?
And this number, wow, it really sets the stage. A 10 degrees Celsius difference isn't just a statistic. That's the gap between a nice summer day and a truly dangerous, life-threatening heat wave. And this gap exists exactly where most of us live and work. It's a huge deal.
All right, so to really get why this new idea is such a breakthrough, we first have to wrap our heads around the fundamental challenge. We need to understand the stubborn, sticky heat that builds up in our cities.
So here's the core issue in a nutshell. The strategies we've been using, reflective surfaces, more parks, they're not bad ideas, of course not. But the argument here is that they're just not enough anymore. They've kind of hit a wall, and they just can't keep up with the scale of the problem in our concrete jungles. And to really get this, we need to talk about the urban heat island effect. The easiest way to think about it is that our cities act like giant storage heaters. All that asphalt and concrete, they just soak up the sun's energy all day long and then slowly release it all night. So the city never really gets a chance to cool down. And it becomes this vicious cycle. The dark roads absorb heat, which makes us blast our air conditioners, which then pumps even more hot air outside, warming the city even more. And you can see how all these things just feed into each other and make the problem worse and worse. Okay, so before we jump into the really cool new idea, it helps to look back. What have we actually tried to do to fight this urban heat? Let's take a quick look at the journey so far. This timeline really maps out how our thinking has evolved. Back in the 80s, it was all about one thing: just reflect the sunlight. So, white roofs. Simple. By the 2000s, we were like, okay, let's bring nature into it, with green roofs and parks. Then, in the 2010s, we got even smarter about things like water management. Every step was an improvement, for sure, but nothing was a silver bullet. And this quote just nails it. It perfectly captures the mindset. For so long, the focus was entirely on preventing the heat from getting absorbed in the first place. But what about all the heat that's already there, trapped between the buildings? That was the big blind spot in all our previous attempts.
But then, things start to change. We see this pivotal shift in thinking, and honestly, this is where it gets really, really exciting. Instead of just blocking heat, the new idea is all about actively removing it.
And this is the aha moment. For years, we were focused on reflection, bouncing light away. But the real game changer is something called convection. It's about using air movement to literally carry heat away. Instead of just passively blocking the sun, the idea is to design surfaces that create these tiny, invisible air currents that lift heat right off the building. It's about making our buildings breathe.
So, how does this actually work? Well, it's basically a three-step process. First, you analyze the wind patterns on a super local level, like block by block. Then, and this is the really clever part, you design building surfaces with these special microtextures that are engineered to create tiny little swirls of air, or vortices. And finally, those little vortices do all the work. They lift the heat off the surface and feed it into the bigger air currents. It's a move from a passive defense to a really active cooling system. And the difference is just crystal clear when you put them side by side. The old way is kind of like wearing a white t-shirt on a hot day. It helps. But the new way, it's like having a personal fan literally woven into the fabric of your clothes. It's a whole different level. And this is not just a theory, not by a long shot. The data is pretty incredible. Just look at the difference here. These new convective surfaces aren't just a little bit better, they are almost twice as effective at cooling as our best previous solutions. That's not a small step forward, that is a massive leap. Okay, so we've got this groundbreaking new approach, but what does it actually mean for our cities, for our health, for our future? Let's dig into the potential impact here. So the potential impact is huge, and it's widespread. The biggest slice of the pie here is energy savings, which is amazing for our wallets and the planet. But look at the other pieces. The effects on public health and just our simple day-to-day comfort are absolutely critical too.
And this table really boils it all down. The simple finding that surface texture can control heat transfer, that could lead to totally new building codes. The fact that we can engineer airflow on such a small scale, that opens the door to retrofitting the buildings we already have. This is a real roadmap for how we can redesign our cities for a warmer world.
So why should you care about all this? Well, ultimately, this breakthrough could mean a more affordable, more comfortable, and healthier life for all of us. We're talking lower energy bills in the summer, safer and more pleasant walks through the city, and just a more livable environment for everyone.
And we'll leave you with this one final, really important question from the source. Now that we have this incredibly powerful new tool in our toolbox, it makes us ask, where do we even begin? How do we use this technology not just to cool our cities, but to make them fairer and more resilient for everyone who lives there? It's a huge question and definitely one worth thinking about. Thanks so much for joining us.